Good afternoon, everybody. This is Mike Feldbauer coming to you from the Flagler Voice podcast studios here in Palm Coast. The Flagler Voice podcast studio is being powered by the U.S. News and Entertainment Network. And today, our podcast is part of our Candidates podcast, where we've offered to all the Flagler County candidates, whether it's city or county, whatever it is, if they'd like to come on and present themselves to the community, they're welcome to do that. And today we have a gentleman who has accepted that. It is Mr. Royer. He is running for county commission. So we will start off with him here shortly. And my question to him today to start off is, what made you decide to run for county commission, and what district are you running in?
Well, thank you, Mike, for bringing me on the show here tonight. I'm up running for County Commission, District 2. I decided to run when Greg, that's in there right now, decided he was going to retire. He's a Navy captain. I'm Navy. I was a Navy enlisted. When he decided to retire, and I've been going to county's meetings since the beginning of last year, I attend also 80% of the zoning and planning, where I wish more people from the public would go. They would learn early on where development's going. Unfortunately, sometimes I am the only one sitting there from the public, and sometimes I'm the only one that speaks at the podium. That being said, I decided to run. I noticed how the county is running just recently. I'm glad I decided to run because the state finance officer reported that we had a 110% increase in 6 years of increases in taxes. That's a large amount of money that was increased. I've seen some of the increasing myself in property taxes. I do understand property taxes went up because the values of property taxes went up. There were statements made by some of the incumbents that's the reason why taxes went up. It had nothing to do with them raising taxes. But there is places where I lived in Pennsylvania, as an example, what Penn Forest held property taxes for 6 years. The county remained to charge us, but then the seat of township supervisors decided to vote and not increase property values where their millage increased. Mm-hmm. So you can not have to follow the flow. So if they wanted not going 110% and maybe kept it at a cap of 23, maybe 33 at the high, maybe we wouldn't be in this jam that we're all. And unfortunately, other counties and municipalities had followed the same suit with the manipulation of the marketing of housing. We've seen this bubble happen 5 times since the 80s. I've lived to see them all, and I did well on one where I flipped homes, but they changed the laws here in Florida. It's going to be a little harder to flip homes now because they really put more zoning on people that try to flip homes, where you got to meet higher standards for wind mitigation and everything else. So when you think you're going to flip a home for $30,000 investment, it ends up being 110 because you got to meet all these other zoning. Mm-hmm. So flipping is going to be probably decreased. And it's probably going to slow down the market on our downside of the market this time, because that usually brought up the market for real estate to keep it afloat. When people like me would invest, I'm probably not going to be invested in this market climate. But outside of that, I do believe, we have this state proposal coming, and it's a constitutional amendment that's going to be giving us our tax reduction in our homesteads. And I was asked that question last night. And if I do get elected, I will honor that vote by the voters. I'm not going to get into the fear tactics. Yeah. Because unfortunately, we're starting to hear the fear tactics. I don't get worried about the fear, because if it happens, it happens. There's going to have to be some cuts. But I can assure those who work for the county, I will not, in my best ability, to not lay anybody off. I would try to keep everybody intact. But there's going to be some hanging fruit, you could say, that's going to have to be let go. And unfortunately, that's where we're going. We also got to look at, if you don't decide to take that tax reduction, we're heading into a recession. And I'm not here to say this is a fear tactic. This is factual. Foreclosures have gone up 33% since last year. We've got people that they call over under. They're over the heads in mortgage because of the interest rates and everything else, and then they lose their job and they can't make their bills. We've seen that in 2008. We've seen that in all the other ups of the market, and now we're seeing it again. They claim, now that's just claiming from people that are very on tune with all this. They claim that this could be worse than 2008. So I'm going to say to the voters that are trying to use fear-mongering and saying that, we're going to lose all these services, that's not basically true. And if you do not take the tax cut and we do go into a serious recession, you're going to wish that you had that first year, which I believe is going to be, I think the first year is going to be 150% reduction, I think it was, from 50 to 150. Yeah. And then it's going to go the following year to 250 reduction. That's going to be, in my case, for my own personal, the first year I would see a reduction of probably around $1,600. Well, $1,600 off my property tax will probably pay for my water bill. That has increased. Okay, so that would be helping me pay my water bill. I think everybody here would agree with me that's listening. And again, I will assure, if I do get elected, that no fire and no police, law enforcement, and the main services that we need, like roads, cleaning swells, will be depleted. But again, there's going to be a lot of hanging fruit that's going to have to go. Unfortunately, a lot of the 501c programs will probably have to be cut first. It's just we just can't do it anymore. But you know what? There's always going to be a rebound moment. Okay, so that's what we need to prepare for. Then, what's the rebound look like? And also, I noticed last night, none of my constituents that are running don't want to talk about what they're allowed to do if this does happen. They don't want to use the dirty word raised in taxes and the other avenue as a county seat. They're trying to use it lightly by saying fees. Okay, but a fee is a tax. Okay, so whatever way we look at it, it could be a sales tax increase. It could be all these numerous things. But then we have a lot of outstanding issues. Pennington mentioned it last evening. We have 130 miles of unpaved roads. Okay. Now I was out her town hall meeting, and there was a older lady there that Pennington got very nervous and didn't want to address her, and she sent the road engineer over to talk to her. And when he asked her, "How long have you been waiting, ma'am, for your road?" And she said 50 years. She's been waiting for her dirt road to be paved. Now, that shocked me, okay? I can't believe that there's residential homes on the western side of our county that have no paved roads. Now, she would rebut and say, well, there's a lot of people out there that don't want paved roads. Okay, that's true. I've been in a situation where I lived on 13 acres, and it was a POA association, and we had 13 miles of dirt roads. We had 26 miles of swells, okay, and we had a corrupt POA board. Now, I developed a advisory board, and from this advisory board, I chaired it, and I had very talented people, and I even had a member of the board, which was the vice president, on the board, which then they tried to manipulate that he couldn't be on the board, and I had to show him the charter of Florida that one member of the board can be on an advisory board. And I had to show him the Shine Act law, because I had a gentleman, his name was Mike, and he had capabilities like today that we have. He used to be a production manager for large concerts, and he had all these big cameras, the big cameras, that they had in the day. And he had the booms with the mics. And we set it up for the first meeting. He came to me. He liked what I was going to try to do because our minutes were not the minutes. Okay. So by recording, we had solid information. And what also we had, when I went to my first meeting, this was down in Volusia County, off the 46, a place called Geneva. And it was a POI, and it was called Lake Harney Woods. So what happened with this association, when I went to my first meeting, there was a sheriff there at the firehouse, and the firehouse happened to be in our gates. And when I asked the gentleman, hey, what's the sheriff doing here? He says, oh, this is your first meeting. I said, yes, it is. He said, these meetings go fisticuffs. I go, really? So that was my introduction of what I was getting myself into. But I'm going to tell you what, I do miss the property. It was on 13 acres. I felt like I had the world. 13 acres. I mean, when you have property like that, you just feel you really own something.
Yeah.
Okay. That being said, again, I started the advisory board. I struggled with it for 3 years. We moved forward. We started a website. People that were scared to go to these meetings were watching the website. And then it got to about year 2 where I was still struggling with the board telling us about how they were going to take care of the roads, how they're going to take care of the swells. And to be honest with you, none of us were qualified. So I happened to look at the plat for Lake Harney Woods that was developed in the 1980s. And there was a civil engineer's name on it called John Bakar. So I researched John. John was 84 years old, still licensed in Cocoa Beach, which probably was about 30 minutes from my location. I called him up. We set up a meeting, and he gave me a little history about Lake Harney Woods. And he said, yeah, I'm the one that developed it and put the properties requirement to be for a 100-year flood. Because if you ever know that area off of Geneva area, there's a lot of, you want to see wetlands, there's wetlands. Let me put it this way, it's wetlands because it's airboat country. So that being said, and gators, okay, a lot of gators. So he did the roads at a 100-year flood. So that area never really flooded. Only by the St. John River we had flooding issues where the water were rising up. One year when I was there, I had to call the Volusia County Sheriff Department to get sandbags because we had a hurricane coming. Well, we struggled to get these sandbags, and they told us the nearest dump for sand was about 15 miles away for us to pick up our sand. So me being prior fire department, understanding emergency management, I made some more phone calls, and I ended up, talking to a deputy that ended up, not only now he's a deputy, he's a lieutenant on the Volusia County Sheriff Department. And he remembers being there on a prior hurricane where he was helping set up sandbags to save homes. So he said, I'll make the arrangement because he didn't want to come back down there. And he called the Volusia County Prison where they had the prisoners come down. They dumped the sand. They filled, I think it was a total of 4,500 sandbags for us, filled them. And then we just had to go down and pick it up. And we, as neighbors, helped the river property. There was probably about 23 homes on the river. This association had about 285 homes, I believe it was. So that being said, so John Bakar came into picture because after talking to John, I asked him if I can buy his services to come to a meeting to help us out for the advisory board side. And when John came to the meeting, I'm going to say it this way. I didn't say it earlier, but I'm also a veteran from the Navy. And when John came, my vision of what happened with John showing up, we got favorable winds in our sails. That's how I'm going to say it as a Navy terminology. By having those favorable winds, we end up moving forward. So we end up getting the first V coming in through the gate, the V being the two main roads, and then between it was the secondary roads. That would be about a total of a little over 5 miles. We did a special assessment at 2.25 for a 30-year mortgage. Okay. And, so we got the first time. Now, the reason it cost that much, because unfortunately, we had a timber company on the one road going on parallel to 46, and that shared road was in the agreement. So that road was 40 feet wide, not 20, and we had to pave the whole road. And they kicked in a little bit, but they should have maybe kicked in a little bit more, but they only use it once every 5 years, 7 years. They got, you got to get large enough trees in order to go in there and make it marketable for them to go in and cut trees down. But then they also had their own exit gate. They didn't use our gate, so they had their own exit gate. But they did use our access road, and that was an agreement that was in the plan. But John Picard helped us out a lot. And so for me to move forward, I would like to see us for the sand replenishing. We're hearing studies from the Army engineers coming in, trying to give us their evaluation of what would be the best effective way. We've still got properties that have not given us property rights. We're still litigating that issue. There's a lot of things. And then how do we pay for it? Okay. Now, the problem with this is, just to let everybody know, all the viewers know, the state has come to our county, and we're one of 3 counties that share the beach side that do not have a comprehension plan. And by not having a comprehension plan, the state has been telling us for years we need a short-term and a long-term direction of how we're going to replenish this beach. And that being said, they will drop us if we don't come up with a plan soon. They do not like the fact that we shoot from the hip, and we've been shooting from the hip for the last 25 years, and it's coming ahead. And here we can't even get stage. I think we're on stage 3 now, which is my area, Painters Hill section, Beverly Beach, and it stopped. When I moved there in 2017, I believe we had a sand replenishing program going on at that time, but the program included a full run. Everything got done. For some reason now we piecemealed it because we can't come up with the funds. We're struggling, and it's just going to get more expensive. We're also got to figure out, right now we're trying to do studies. Can we pull it from the ocean floor? Can we get sand from mining it? But those places are going to be becoming obsolete eventually because everybody's doing what we're doing. And eventually somebody's going to put the stop to the mining because we can't just keep digging holes in Florida and putting water in it because I believe we have enough water in Florida already. So that being said, we got to come up with a better plan. I also would like to see us, especially on the northern end where I live, Painters Hill, Beverly Beach, those residents up there have no problem putting seawalls in at their costs. The problem is, and I've been going to the county and I've been trying to address it, but the county keeps saying, that's a state issue. And what I mean by that, these neighbors up there are trying to put their own seawalls in to protect their properties because while they're waiting for sand, the sand is disappearing in front of their properties, and it keeps going. Their houses are going to go into the ocean. So, there's neighbors now that have done it in the past. The state requires that you have a minimum of 5 neighbors, and that cost usually runs about. The last time I talked to 5 neighbors, I think the cost was close to $2 million for 5 homes to put a seawall in. And their seawall is about 20 feet deep, not like the one that the state paid down in Ormond, which is, I believe it was 40 feet deep, where they used a drill system and everything else. So I would love us to see where we can get grant money to bring that same formula that Ormond and my understanding, it was also a collaboration of neighbors in that neighborhood that live in the condos that were very powerful people that have connections that were able to get that product up and running. And they were able to sell and get the grant money by saying, listen, we need to save 46. That's our emergency route. Well, 46 runs all the way up through Beverly Beach, Flagler Beach. We're no different than Ormond. Why didn't that program run way up to the end to Marineland, and then, from there, then it would be St. John's responsibility to go from there.
Push it off.
Yeah, push it off to St. John, let them figure it out. But that, right after that, we hit the bridge, and then it becomes St. John area. I'd like to see where we work, because I did do my petitions in that area, and I met about 5 neighbors that are trying to get seawalls in, but they can't get their neighbors to go in with them. And so now they're stuck, and I would like to see where they can do solo seawalls. They shouldn't have to get 5 collaboration neighbors. One seawall at a time is better than no seawall.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Let me bring up something that you mentioned earlier in your statement, that you're going to the planning meeting and that kind of stuff, and no one's showing up. You sometimes are the only one there, the only one speaking. When I first moved here, I moved here in 2006, moved into an older community, and there was things happening that the community didn't want. Okay. So we go to the planning board, and one of the planning board meetings was about them putting a nursing home on a parallel street, which would have taken a whole bunch of our land that was all at that point. None of us thought they were going to be able to build on. We had about 80% of our community show up at planning board meetings and voice their opinions. And they did it very business-like, professional. They weren't these people coming up yelling and screaming, all that kind of stuff, presenting the issues that we're going to run into if they did this. Part of it, the way they were going to do is they were going to have an entrance into our residential community in and out of that facility, which didn't make any sense at all. It was going to be off one of the main roads, so they didn't need to do that. But the planning board never listened to one word. Okay? Not one word. When it came to their vote to approve and to send the plan on to the city council at that point, because it needed to go there, there was nothing. They sit, let me say, they sit up there at the podium, at their tables, and they turn away, they look at each other, they're not even paying attention to people coming up at the podium. So after doing that a couple of times for some different other things in our county, I said, what's the use of going? This is just, they're not going to listen to anybody. There was no comments coming back, no saying, well, we'll check into this or any of that kind of stuff. So why bother? So how do you create, whether it's the planning board or getting more people coming to the county commission to do those kinds of presentations to the commissioners when there's real concerns coming up? And I hear a lot of times when we go to all these candidate things that we're representing our people. And then I hear they don't represent our people at all. How do you think that you would be able to accomplish? And I know you need more than one person. Okay. I've always said I'd like to have, when I meet with prospective candidates and hear what their stands on and what they are going to try to do. And I said, well, if we wrote a contract, I said, if you get in, you would at least try. And if you didn't try, you'd resign. So those are the kinds of questions that I think our community has of all the candidates coming in. I remember a few years ago, because of the nonprofit that I'm involved in, that I interviewed every mayoral candidate on a particular topic that I'm involved in. And I heard a lot of yippa yappa, and then asking, here's the question for me, even then, and even for you. If you don't get in, are you still going to try to do what you're doing now? I was telling those candidates, if you don't get in, are you still going to try to help people? And I'm talking about people in the world of recovery. And only one person contracted a verbal contract said yes. The rest of them, they didn't. They danced around that question. So, what you're saying now, what you think, your experience is a lot broader than I experienced. Hearing from you with the one meeting we went to, I'm glad you're here
Hmm.
because now I have a better understanding of who you are as a candidate.
Hmm.
But the things that you're talking about doing are things that if you don't, and I'm not trying to be negative,
Hmm.
is those things you still going to be? Are you still going to be at the podium? Are you still going to be trying to represent you and your community in the things that they need?
That's a good question, and I'm actually working on that.
Okay, well, remember
And
we're recording it and filming it,
okay,
so
so I'm going to say I'm actually working on that. So let's talk about Beverly Beach. There's a mayor down there. He represents about 500 people. He's been there over 30 years. Okay, as elected mayor. If you want to really get the storyline of how we got where we are today, uh, from going from organic master plan to manipulated master plans. Okay, our master plans have changed over the years, and they never were brought to the voters. Okay, these were just voted on by commissions, briefly spelled out to us that it's going to be good, good, good. But now we're finding out, no, it's not so good for citizens. It's good for developers. It's win-win-win situation for them. Uh, so that being said, I actually talked to the mayor because at the sand replenishing, when they called all the five municipalities, and he happened to be sitting in a chair where the commission sits. Okay. I said to myself, I live in the incorporated side where the county represents me. I'm not represented. I'm only represented by the county, and they're not doing a good job. So I actually went to the mayor and I asked him a question because Painter Hill used to have its own mayor. Unfortunately, that charter had been given up because nobody else wanted to run, so it fell by the wayside. So for me to try to recharter that is a large challenge, and I'd have to get the approval from the commission. It'll be easier for me, and the mayor did agree with me, to annex as much as we can over to Beverly Beach on the incorporated side. And there's a lot of neighbors that I've talked to when I was doing my petitions that would be happy to do that because they do see we don't have representation. We need a voice. And by having a mayor would be a plus for us, just like the mayor of City of Palm Coast has, the mayor of, Flagler Beach, Bunnell. They all got representation. And if you noticed, even when they were trying to do the sales tax increase, I think it was Bunnell and City of Palm Coast said they want half of the 0.5% of the penny that they're going to get, so they want half that, so that kind of crumbled some of the money that the county was expecting because they already did the numbers, what it was going to generate. And by them saying they're going to take half the half, they'd seen that there was going to be a potential of a big loss and then a shortfall. Let's say a shortfall. So the plan was starting to crumble. They are right now. They're all over the place. I do support Kim's view. Kim on the commission, she was not sold on the half sales tax. She thought there was other avenues we can go. And after that discussion and buying my fuel for my diesel truck, okay, I've noticed for some reason our bookends are cheaper for fuel by 20 to 30%. So why are we already paying higher? And then they want to add another 0.5 cent. And another 0.5 cent for the western side for farmers or businesses that use their vehicles more often. That's going to be a big dent in their businesses.
Well, we're coming to an end for today.
Okay.
I appreciate you being here. It's been very interesting hearing about your history so people can now understand what experiences you have and they can put that into the position. Is that something they want? Getting that information out is so important. I will also tell you that on August 19th, if you're still in the race at that point, and you know what, you're welcome to come back. We are here to let all the candidates, regardless of what side of the fence, whether we personally like them or dislike, that's no bearing, to come out and get their voice out into the community. The Flagler Voice podcast studio has a 28-day proven analytics of 150 to 225,000 views. Not every podcast gets that amount of views, obviously, but when you're talking about what we're talking about, the views go up because people need to know. And then we also need, as you heard at the event that you and I were at, we need the people to get out and vote.
Yes, we do.
How do you complain if you weren't part of, you only have two choices, part of the problem or part of the solution. The only way you can be part of the solution, whether it works or not, is to get out there and vote.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody, we're encouraging you to get out there, be out there on August 18th, whatever you need to do, and get your vote counted. It's important. So Raymond, we appreciate you being here again. We're glad to have this conversation and look forward to seeing you again. So everybody, this is Mike Feldbauer signing off from the Flag the Voice podcast studio, coming to you from Palm Coast. And the Flag the Voice podcast studio is being powered by the U.S. News and Entertainment Network, Carly. So have a great day. Have a listen. You can find these candidate interviews on Facebook, on the Flag the Voice Facebook pages, on our YouTube page, on Spotify, on Instagram, on Rumble, and even more. So there's no excuse. Get out there, listen, learn about your candidate. Make a decision based on your education, not on somebody's opinion. Have a great day.
Things are truly better with us.